Woodside Apartments in Lorton, Virginia, was a community that was always known for being very loving and family-friendly. They had a lot of different events that allowed for the residents of the area to bond with one another while playing with their kids. It was December 3rd, 1989, when the residents gathered for their annual holiday party, which they all looked forward to every year, especially the kids. Single mother Tammy Brannon was also in attendance with her 5-year-old daughter, Melissa, who was a bit shy, but also excited for the party as well. The kids were playing, while the adults were having fun conversation and drinks. Tammy and her daughter had had a wonderful evening that night and were preparing to head home when Tammy stopped to speak with one of her neighbors. At the same time, Melissa asked if she can get some chips to take home with her. Tammy said yes, but advised her to come right back. While still in conversation with a neighbor and putting on her coat, she glanced over and saw Melissa at the snack table. She continued talking with the neighbor and then looked over again. But this time, Melissa was nowhere to be seen. Tammy scanned the room looking for Melissa and asked the partygoers if they had seen her, in which none of them had. Her calm scan of the room turned into panic as she desperately called for Melissa, but Melissa was gone. The police were called, and they immediately started questioning the residents at the party. But no one at the party could recall seeing Melissa leave the party at any point. Detective Bill Wilden was head of the investigation with the Fairfax County Police Department, along with the search commander, Richard Rappaport. The search team did a sweep of the building just in case Melissa was hiding somewhere for fun, but there was no trace of her in the building, which brought up concern for the investigators. They were concerned that while playing with some of her friends, she may have wandered outside. That night it was extremely cold, and Melissa at the age of 5 would not have survived outside by herself if she just so happened to have gotten lost. The area was surrounded by woods, so the investigative team, along with some of the residents, started searching the entire area. The police also went to the apartment of the other residents that didn't attend the party to interview them, due to the fact that most of the residents knew Melissa. All of the residents that were interviewed stated that it was less likely that Melissa would have wandered off on her own without her mother, being that she was a bit of a shy child. During the search, there was an open window that was discovered in the furnace room of the main building where the party was taking place. This gave indication to the investigative team that there was now a possibility of an abduction. Afterwards, the investigative team went back and continued to question the residents that were at the party to see if there was anything strange that they had noticed or someone who was strange. Several of the residents that were women spoke of the maintenance man, Caleb Hughes, that attended the party as well, and how he made a lot of the women feel very uncomfortable with his behavior that night. They stated that he had made a lot of inappropriate sexual gestures to them. They also stated that he had spent a lot of time around the kids at the party and had far too much physical contact with them that made a lot of the parents uneasy. The investigators tried to locate Hughes, but he wasn't home. But eventually, Hughes was made aware that the police wanted to speak with him, so he contacted them and they interviewed him at his home. During the interview, Hughes stated that he had left the party at some point, and before going home, he stopped by the store to pick up a few beers and drove the long way home. He was wearing different clothes while being interviewed, in which the police questioned him about it, but Hughes stated that the clothes that he was wearing when he was at the party, he decided to wash as soon as he got home. They found it to be strange that he felt the need to wash all of his clothes that he had had on the moment that he came through the door. He took the investigator to his washer and dryer and allowed him to look through the clothes. The investigator looked through the clothes as much as he could and also noticed that there was a knife belt that was missing the knife. The investigators decided to take Hughes down to the precinct so that they could get more information out of him, absent from his wife. The police assumed that Hughes may have been having an affair, which was why he was so hesitant to give very much detail about where he had been that night. But when being interviewed at the police station, they discovered that Hughes had no alibi for his whereabouts. Hughes' arrogant nature bothered investigators. But with no evidence to pin to him, Hughes was told he was free to go home, but they still believed that he wasn't telling the whole truth. in which Hughes replied, "Prove it." The next day, a mass search had begun that included Army soldiers as well. The car that Hughes was driving that night was actually his wife's car, and when asked, she gave permission for the car to be impounded so that it could be searched. During the search, traces of blood was discovered, along with red and blue fibers that matched what Melissa was said to have been wearing that evening. Hughes' clothes that he was wearing that evening were obtained and examined as well. Traces of blood were found on the shoes, along with noticeable cuts on the shoes as well. After these discoveries, Hughes was given a polygraph test in which he failed, but he continued to say that he didn't know Melissa, even though the partygoers stated that he was sitting with Melissa many times during that night. But the investigators got their big break when Hughes' own wife informed them that she had become suspicious of Hughes and had actually been tracking his mileage on his vehicle. She provided proof that there were extra mileage of the car that she was unable to put a reason to. This gave investigators a perimeter to focus on, but it was still not enough to arrest Caleb Hughes. They started looking into the background. They discovered that Hughes had lived a pretty hard life. He had a long record as a juvenile delinquent and had a history of substance abuse. But the one thing that caught their attention was that he had been previously convicted for contributing to the delinquency of a minor and seemed to have a strange attraction to kids. But an interesting turn of events happened when Caleb Hughes was put in jail after a judge in the next county was notified by his probation officer that Hughes had violated his probation for an auto theft conviction. During that time, Hughes was now behind bars. During that time that Hughes was behind bars, examiners were able to match a piece of dark rabbit hair that was found in Hughes' vehicle to a rabbit hair coat that belonged to Melissa and that she had been wearing that evening. When she was abducted, she was wearing that coat. Not long after that, Tammy received a shocking and unexpected call from a random person, stating that they were holding Melissa for ransom and demanded for her to pay $75,000 for her to return home alive. But when the FBI captured the caller, they quickly discovered that this was two students that were trying to simply extort Tammy for money. So the focus went back to Hughes. The examiners never gave up with the things that they obtained from Hughes' vehicle, and this ended up paying off. When they were examining strands of dog hair that were found in his vehicle, there was one small piece of blonde hair they discovered, and it was proven to be a match to Melissa's hair that they obtained from one of her brushes. This was a big deal, but the one thing that would give them the most indication would be the red and blue fibers that were found that matched the outfit that Melissa was wearing. The only way that they would have been able to see if it was actually a match is if they had the outfit to compare it to, but the clothes were on Melissa when she disappeared. The outfit was a blue sweater with plaid sleeves, with a matching plaid skirt, and in the corner of the sweater was a picture of Big Bird from Sesame Street. The police contacted JCPenney's to try to get the outfit from them, but it just so happened that the outfit was a limited special Christmas outfit that was produced only once, but they did provide a list of people all over the country that bought the outfit. So investigators went to several different locations around the country to find this outfit. They were lucky enough to find a family that had purchased the outfit and were willing to send it to them for examination. When receiving the package, the outfit was examined and the fibers were compared. They were a match, indicating that Melissa at one point was in the front seat of the car that Caleb Hughes was driving. Finally, the investigators had enough evidence to charge Hughes, in which they did. 1 year after Melissa's disappearance, Caleb Hughes was arrested and indicted for kidnapping Melissa. And even though they still had not found Melissa or her body, under Virginia law, you can convict someone without a body. But they were unable to charge him with murder, but they were able to charge him with abduction with intent to defile. The trial only lasted 8 days. Caleb Hughes was found guilty for abduction with the intent to defile and was sentenced to 50 years in prison. And unfortunately, Melissa's body was never found.